Nah, bro, sorry, you're gone. You're out of a job, Ghosty. What's up, guys? Welcome to 31 Days of Horror. I am Morgan Film Fan. Let's jump into some scares. This is day 15. We are halfway through, and this is Trick. Now, I've heard of Trick. I think it came out in 2019, if I'm not mistaken. And I have watched it. I have watched parts of it, but I must have fallen asleep through it or something because I only remember certain pieces, and I remember actually not liking it. So this, I kind of consider my first watch, even though it's technically my second. And I liked it way more. So I had a really good time with this film. This is a really well done modern slasher for the most part. I mean, I'm not saying it's perfect, but for the most part, this slasher is how you do slashers, especially in the modern day. What you got going on is film starts up at this house party, and they're all playing this spin the knife kind of thing. And there's this character. He has this awesome looking pumpkin mask, which I thought was from Halloween 3, but it's not. It's totally different. And it can spin around because it has two faces. On the front, it's kind of like a more like normal looking clown, and then the other side is more of like a scary kind of evil looking clown. And he spins it around, and then he goes through this entire like slasher fest. He's just slaying, and the violence in this film is brutal, and it's a very gory film, and they do a really good job with that. So he's just slaying at this party, and eventually one of the people at the party ends up getting a hold of him and stabbing him. So he ends up in the hospital, and then you're introduced to these characters, Mike and Jane. They're police officers, and Mike is interrogating this killer. His name is Patrick Weaver, and this killer is chained to a bed, and he looks catatonic. He's not saying anything. And eventually during this interrogation he has this whole breakout where he literally gets out of the bed, out of his chains and everything. It's amazing. Great choreography. This guy, he's brutal. He's vicious. Like, he's a teenager or some young adult, and he just slays. He looks more like a college student. I don't know if these people are supposed to be in high school or college, but they all look like college people, so I'm just going to assume that. And for such a young kid, though, and he's not even that big, but his agility, like, this guy can slay. And they end up shooting him down. Eventually he goes out a window, and he falls like 23 feet or something like that. And then when they get down there, can't find his body, so we're like, oh, do we have like a Michael Myers situation going on? And it's just like an ambulance driver down there that like saw the body and swerved, and they have no idea what happened to it. Well, every Halloween from there on out, there's slayings with a masked killer with a different mask, and it goes from 2015, where this situation happened, to the next year where this slaying happens at this party called Satan's Soiree. Soiree? I don't know how to say that word. Satan's Soiree, which is a cool name for an event on Halloween. There's a big slaying there. It's awesome. 2017 happens again, 2017 happens again, and it just keeps going to 2018, and right up to 2019. 2018 is cool because that's when he starts to actually go for the cops, and it starts to get a little bit more intense. And then 2019, this is all happening along a river in New York towns, and each year it's a different town that these events are going on. And Mike Epps is really on this shit because he's starting to get a little paranoid about it too, because everybody obviously suspects that Patrick Weaver's dead because he got shot down, and where else would he go, right? But there's all these similarities throughout these killings. Even the DNA that Mike Epps found is different people's DNA, so he tells the police officers or his lieutenants that, you know, he thinks the killer is doing this on purpose to mess with the cops, and they're like, no, Mike, you're crazy. So 2009 rolls along, and that's where you're introduced to a girl named Cheryl that was at the beginning of the film at this party. She's one of the girls that was there, and you get more of her story and more of her character building. And Mike at this point is fired from the force for being too conspiracy-ish with this thing going on, but he's not giving up. He's so determined that this killer is the same and whatnot. So as the film progresses, getting closer to the third act, it finishes off in this Halloween maze and this movie theater where they're showing like a movie marathon, and there's a bunch of slangs there again, brutal stuff. There's one where there's this maze attraction employee kind of thing in a pig mask and a chainsaw, and he's getting pretty aggressive, like with his acting and stuff. So you're wondering, is he part of it? But the Trick character comes right behind him and jumps right on his shoulders and just puts a knife right through his head. So yeah, the killings are sick, like in both ways. Sick as in awesome and sick as in brutal. So I like that a lot. Really like those scenes. And then there's another hospital scene to finish it off. And that's when pretty much all the twists start happening, so I don't want to get too much into that with spoilers, but you get a lot of reveals. This Trick character created an internet sensation, which is really funny how people do people, like, he creates this, like, following on the internet that admires him and praises him and worships him and stuff like that. So I've been through, like, some YouTube channels that you start to discover, or people who talk about weird, like, underground YouTube channels. One of my favorites actually is by Nick Crowley. I watch him a lot, and he talks about people just following the weirdest shit on YouTube, the most disturbing shit on YouTube. So I know that stuff happens, but regardless, that's a different video. Trick that ends up happening, and that's a big, there's a lot of cultiness going on, and that's part of the reveal and stuff like that. For the most part, I love this film. Right up to, I'd say, the last 20 minutes, there's a lot of suspension of disbelief, and you just have to accept it, and it's fine because the film is so good that those things that don't really make much sense, it's just like whatever, you know, the film's good enough. After the last 20 minutes of the film, though, it just goes too far, and especially the ending, I just was way too unbelievable for me, and I didn't find the reveals to be, they were just too much. They were overboard. They really took me out of the film. Still great right up to that point, and even still good after that. But the only thing I'm saying is that you really have to suspend your disbelief to really appreciate this film at its most. But other than that, the characters are great. It's spooky. It feels like Halloween. It's a great slasher film. For a slasher film on its own, it's really fantastic. It reminds me, especially the killer, it goes back and forth with that Scream style. It's very, like, the way he waves his knife and stuff like that. Very Scream-esque, but it also goes to that, like, supernatural, like, you're wondering, like, why isn't this kid dying? Like, and there's certain things, too, that he does that, again, there's no way one person, especially one teen, can be doing all this. There's this one scene involving a trap, and this trap involves a huge pile of bricks that are hanging up. I'm like, I'm watching the film, like, one kid put all those bricks up there? Come on. That doesn't seem right, but the film, I'll obviously answer some of these questions for you at the end, but I'll just leave that I'll just leave that there for now. I would give this film a 55 out of 100. Why out of 100? Because I hate decimals. I would have given it 45, but because the film is just so damn entertaining throughout and such a gore fest and a good Halloween fun bag of treats, it has to go up to a 55. I love how Tom Atkins is in here. He plays one of the best badasses, as he always does, of course. But in this one, he does such a good job. The movie they're showing at the theater is obviously Night of the Living Dead, which you see in every horror movie because it's copyright free, and it basically has no copyrights on it, so anybody can use the footage pretty much. One thing too I'll mention, especially at the beginning of the film, during these slayings, and these like every Halloween night, they mention the amount of bodies. Like I'll give you the example at the house party. He's slaying people left, right, and center, and then at the hospital, it's like, oh, there was four victims, like four deaths. I mean, four deaths. He at least killed like 14. But then they start saying like, oh, some are in critical condition, some have just been hurt or whatnot. But I'm like, nah, I don't buy it. And then the second one is the opposite. He stabs like two people, and the cop is like, oh, six people died in this place. So maybe they just don't show all the kills or whatever. But I found that funny how the numbers of deaths doesn't match how many people he freaking massacred at these places. Little tiny nitpick, but that's nothing. I think that's it. Could I just leave it at that, or is there? Oh, uh, funny scene. Cheryl's a waitress, and she's working at the restaurant, and one of the other waitresses goes to smack her ass, and Cheryl is so like self-defensive that she notices her right away and turns around and steals her plate and just smiles. I found that really funny. Um, so yeah, I think that's it. And I would recommend Trick, especially if you love slashers. It's one to check out for sure, just for that. But definitely go into it needing to suspend your disbelief, and just know that it's going to be a little bit bonkers by the end with all the twists. There are a lot of twists in the third act. It's one after the other. There's even one like right before the credits roll, which I found pretty cool. So it's fun. I like the Trick. That's day 15, so subscribe to Morgan Film Fan if you like my film reviews, if you like listening to my voice. I'll be back with more soon, so stay tuned for that. Take care and cheers.